But now I want to shift over to CPAC. You guys may have seen Micheal Knowles, CPAC, talking about transgenderism being eradicated from public life entirely. So if you haven't seen it, I'll play the clip real quick.
There can be no middle way in dealing with transgenderism. It is all or nothing. If transgenderism is true, if men really can become women, then it's true for everybody of all ages. If transgenderism is false, as it is, if men really can't become women, as they cannot, then it's false for everybody too. And if it's false, then we should not indulge it, especially since that indulgence requires taking away the rights and customs of so many people. If it is false, then for the good of society, and especially for the good of the poor people who have fallen prey to this confusion, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. The whole preposterous ideology at every level. There can be no middle.
All right. This is interesting. It's been interesting to watch this on Twitter the last day or so, because there's been a lot of back and forth on this. So let me see if I can just jump right to this. See if I can. We'll switch. Share this tab instead. All right. So obviously, with those statements, I mean, there was publications, left-wing publications out there that were saying, basically misrepresenting what Micheal Knowles says. Now, I'm not going to defend what Micheal Knowles says. That's not what I'm about to do right now, because I don't agree with, I don't agree necessarily with what he said. So here is the first, let's see, pop up, come on. Okay. The Daily Beast had reported Micheal Knowles says, wait, no, never mind. It's not that one. It is this one. So at first they reported Micheal Knowles says transgender community must be eradicated at CPAC. Now, obviously, Micheal Knowles did not say the transgender community needs to be eradicated. This is a misleading and false headline, and it says this is genocidal underneath it. Go to the next one. It still says this is genocidal, but it actually just corrects what he said. Let me see. I think that there's another one. Yeah, so Rolling Stones, CPAC speaker calls for transgender people to be eradicated for the good of society. And then they changed it to transgenderism needs to be eradicated. So I will say that, like I said, obviously we saw what he said. It said transgenderism. Yes, transgenderism can be a euphemism, be synonymous with gender ideology, which is, again, if you've watched my stuff, is based in queer theory, which is postmodern neo-Marxism, which I am not a fan of. So you can look at it like that. I want to get rid of queer theory, but to say, and this is where words actually matter, to call it transgenderism instead of saying gender ideology is absolutely taking this and creating drama. It's going to create the buzz that it has for a reason. Micheal Knowles knew what he was doing when he said this. He knew that this was going to be the reaction. It was very much a troll on the left, but this is also what he believes. There's a lot of different ways to say this, but what we don't need, again, I don't agree with how he said this. I think it's very much wrong for the way he said it, and it really does nothing to move the needle to his side. All it's going to do is rile up his base. That's all it's going to do. But to lie like these organizations did, and a lot of these leftists have done, also does nothing. They played into the troll. That's what they've done. So there is one thing that I saw one of my friends post yesterday, and I don't have I don't have his tweet. And this is something that it actually changed my perspective a little bit on this. It doesn't excuse the inflammatory rhetoric. It doesn't excuse, again, like this is just a troll. This is just a troll statement. He knew exactly what he's doing. But a friend of mine posted, to eradicate transgenderism would be to cure gender dysphoria. I think that's being generous. I don't think that's what he meant. But it's an interesting take, because I would be absolutely fine if we could actually cure transgenderism, or we could cure gender dysphoria. We can't. It's not like, I mean, our diagnoses are suffering right now. So right now, the best treatment we have is to transition for the most extreme cases, like me. So, but at the end of the day, that's not what he meant. Like I said, I mean, curing gender dysphoria would be absolutely awesome. We don't have a cure for it. Doctors sell it, transition, as a cure, which is a complete lie. Nobody that has gender dysphoria and that's transitioned is cured. We still, we have dysphoric feelings. It helps alleviate those feelings, but it's not a cure. So if you're looking at it like that, I think that there would be something to say about it. But again, that's not what Micheal Knowles was doing. Micheal Knowles was absolutely trying to stoke the division that we've already seen, to rile up his base, to get him money, to get him clicks. He knew exactly how this was going to work, and the left played into it, and here we are today talking about it. This is exactly what Micheal Knowles wanted. Do I think that Micheal Knowles actually wants to genocide 1.4 million people in this country? I don't. I don't think that. I don't think that any of these. I think these people want to eradicate an ideology. Like I said, they want to. Yeah, they want to eradicate this ideology, and I do too. Quite honestly, I would like to eradicate queer theory from public life. I mean, Marxism is not good. But again, to call it transgenderism is to stoke the fire. And that's not how you win people over. Like, I talk about this quite a bit because I'm in a very unique position, being kind of in the middle. I see things very nuanced. Like we were just talking about the drag bill before. I see things in a very nuanced manner. And so to say that, when I talk in these manners, I'm not trying to win TRAs over. I'm not trying to win, the social conservatives over. But when I talk about issues like this, or I talk about the issues on the TRA side, it's because there are people that follow, the extreme TRAs that are winnable. That's how you win hearts and minds. So I've talked about this with the pronoun game before. There are people that I don't respect in the trans community on the left. But most of the time, I will use their proper pronouns that they want, because I think the moment that you misgender somebody, They turn their ears off and they stop listening. And so those winnable people have now missed your message completely. It's the bare minimum we can do to try to win over some in the middle. And so I understand. I said it, I talked about this in my Rhode Island speech. If you haven't seen my Rhode Island speech, there is a link to that video in one of my playlists, my appearances playlist. I do understand that everybody has a role to play in this fight. You have people like Micheal Knowles, who is going to stoke the fires in the base of his people. I don't think it's as effective as people like to think it's going to be. You have people like Billboard Chris, who does a great job out there on the street, calmly talking to people, giving them facts, and filming it. And so he's winning people over every day when he's out there. And then you have people like me, who is trans, who is able to calmly and rationally create and, put out these types of messages and talk to people. And then when I go to events, again, talk to people with facts, but also show enough respect to the extreme on the left that those in the middle that are winnable are more likely to come over. Everybody has their roles to play. And I think that we can be effective with multiple roles as long as we are working together. And look, I'll talk about this a little bit now. I actually have my cheat sheet right here. These are all the bills in Georgia that I'm working on with no left turn education down here. Some of them I'm not really as much working on with them, but there's the big one is we're trying to ban puberty blockers, or we're trying to ban medicalization of children in schools, or we're trying to ban the medicalization of children in Georgia. Same bills we've seen everywhere else. So banning, life-altering elective surgeries, banning cross-sex hormones. But the thing about this bill is it doesn't ban puberty blockers, and this is how just entrenched even on the right they are. Is I had a Republican senator argue with me that puberty blockers are fully reversible. That was a interesting conversation, but that was somebody who is a Republican that was arguing this. These people, they need facts and they need it to be talked to them, but they're not so entrenched in the day-to-day arguing about all this stuff that they still believe that the lie that, if you go on puberty blockers and you come off of them, there's no ill effects. You will just go through a normal puberty afterwards. Like, this person was so adamant, yet you could tell that they had no idea how doctors prescribed puberty blockers, because he was saying, they can go through puberty, they can take puberty blockers till the age of 18, then come off of them and go through a normal puberty. Not realizing that nobody prescribes them like that, because they're not safe for long-term use. They're not studied in nearly that long-term of use. And even the Dutch protocol, which the Dutch are getting rid of because it's not used properly and they've never been able to recreate the results, starts puberty blockers at 12 or before puberty, and then at the age of 16 you start taking cross-sex hormones. So just that little bit of information let me know that he had no idea what was going on. And so again, that's how little information even these people that are passing bills know about this stuff. And if we're ever going to get through to those on the right, then or those on the left, I mean, if we're ever going to get through some of these, Democrat senators and Democrat congressmen and even Democrat governors, you're not going to do that by stoking, that transgenderism needs to be eradicated. That, again, that just shuts people's ears off. I don't think it's the right messaging. I know what he's saying. I want to get rid of the, gender ideology and queer theory as well, but that's not the way to do it.